Hi guys, Sterling Spectre here. In today's video we'll be going in depth into Bitcoin and everything it has to offer. As you may or may not know, Bitcoin is one of the biggest cryptocurrencies in the world. It has a market cap of over $1 trillion and currently one Bitcoin will sell for $50,000. Bitcoin has come a long way since it was first created, and I believe it still has a long way to go in the future. So let's turn back time a little to 2009 when Bitcoin was created. Hot off the heels of the economic recession, Bitcoin was created to be an electronic peer-to-peer cash system. These peer-to-peer transactions are recorded on the blockchain. Each block in the chain contains information of these transactions. To confirm this information, Bitcoin has allowed people on their own computers to act as verification devices. People who own these computers in a network are incentivized to verify transactions through rewards. These rewards are Bitcoin, and the way to verify the transactions are by mining blocks using the computer. This process is known as proof of work. At the moment, a block is found every 10 minutes, so therefore any transaction on the blockchain should be verified fully within 10 minutes at the most. So far, nearly 19 million Bitcoins have been mined. Throughout the years, the amount of Bitcoin you receive from a block will decrease by half every 4 years. This is called a halving. The first halving was in 2012, the second in 2016, and the latest one was in 2020. The next halving will be in 2024. The last ever halving will occur in the year 2140. This is when all of Bitcoin's supply will be fully mined at 21 million coins. The halving of Bitcoin is one of the main reasons that drives the price up, as the supply of Bitcoin gets more scarce as time goes on. So that's some of the history of Bitcoin and the basic mechanics of the blockchain. The next part of this video will be diving into the good, the bad and the ugly of Bitcoin. I'll be outlining 4 points for why Bitcoin is good and also why it's bad, and then I'll go into the darker side of Bitcoin. So let's start off with my 4 points for the good side of Bitcoin. One of the main reasons Bitcoin was first adopted as a currency is due to the fact that all Bitcoin users can remain anonymous. This is because people would use Bitcoin to mask their identity when buying stuff on the dark web. Instead of using a name, you use a numerical code which is called a wallet address. The fact that you remain anonymous allows for no public tracking, which means any transaction can't be traced back to the user. Furthermore, only the wallet owner can see how many Bitcoins they have, so no information inside your wallet can be viewed. This is amazing as it allows you to have money that no government and central bank can view, basically taking you off the grid in the eyes of the government. This brings us on to my second reason that Bitcoin is good, and this is the independence from authority. Bitcoin is a decentralized currency, meaning it is not only regulated by a single government or central bank. This means that authorities will likely not freeze or demand your coins. There is also no viable way that a taxation would be implemented for Bitcoin. Theoretically, this gives users anonymity and control over their money, because the price isn't linked to government policies. And generally, cryptocurrency users view this as one of the main advantages of Bitcoin. On to my third point, which is high return potential of Bitcoin. In recent years, a lot of people have been buying Bitcoin as a store of wealth in the hopes that it will go up in price exponentially, with some users gaining 10 times their investment back. The first major instance of this was back in 2017, when Bitcoin hit an all-time high of $20,000. More recently, we saw a massive price jump back at the end of 2020, when they hit a high of around $60,000. With a growing number of users believing Bitcoin is a promising global currency, many investors and businesses have decided to adopt it. This helps with increasing the higher return potential, especially for those who bought it at a lower price. In addition, some investors believe Bitcoin will still gain value in the long term, with a possibility of reaching close to 500,000 by 2025. That's because of its fixed supply cap at 21 million coins. On to my last point why Bitcoin is good, and this is because of the liquidity and accessibility. One of the biggest advantages of Bitcoin is that it sees no borders, and this makes it very versatile as a currency. Since Bitcoin can be bought in pretty much every country, it means any user around the world can buy it from a Bitcoin exchange in their own currency. Obviously, Bitcoin has limited ways to actually spend in shops, but when going from country to country, the currency charges and fees are absurd. And this can be solved by buying Bitcoin and then converting it into a different currency. It is also a very liquid commodity, as it can be sold at any moment without a third party or central bank to get in the way of the transaction. So those are my 4 main points of why Bitcoin is good as a currency or commodity. Now I'll be going into my 4 bad points about Bitcoin. My first bad point about Bitcoin is the irreversibility of it. Since Bitcoin transactions are anonymous and unregulated, it means that these transactions cannot be reversed. This is a disadvantage as many things could go wrong. The major thing being either sending the wrong amount of Bitcoin or sending it to the wrong wallet address. Many new users could make this mistake as the wallet numerical code has to be exact for it to be sent. In addition to this, if you are hacked on your computer and your private keys are found, the hacker could get away without any trace and where the transactions went in the world. This is why hackers are turning to crypto, as it masks their identity almost 100%. My second argument for Bitcoin being bad is the volatility. At this point in time, Bitcoin's price isn't very stable. As we have seen in the past, there can be massive spikes but also massive dips. This is one of the main reasons it can't be used effectively as a currency. If a person was to make a huge transaction on the blockchain and they bought something for $10,000, and a couple of seconds later the price drops 20%, then that Bitcoin that has been sent is now only worth $8,000. In comparison, the US dollar is a stable currency when compared to Bitcoin. Obviously, Bitcoin is still in its early days, and after a couple more years, I believe the price will become more stable for it to be used as a currency. On to my third point, that there's no regulations in Bitcoin. I know people will argue that's the whole point of Bitcoin, but it also has its disadvantages. This is because right now, Bitcoin doesn't come with any legal protection and isn't reversible, which makes it highly susceptible to scams. Furthermore, the decentralization of Bitcoin means there's no guarantee of minimum valuation. So if a group of investors with a large amount of money were to pull out all their money, then the value could drop dramatically, which means that they have control over the market and can manipulate it to a certain extent. My last point really focuses on Bitcoin being a true currency. This would mean it would have to handle over 1 billion transactions a day, which currently it can't do this on its own. Bitcoin also can't handle a large number of transactions per block. At the moment, the average transaction size per block is 400 bytes. Theoretically, each block can hold 1 megabyte, which is 1 million bytes. If we use both these numbers, we can calculate the maximum number of transactions per second. First, we take the maximum bytes and divide it by the trailing average, which is 400 bytes. This gives us 2,500. Now, because blocks are created every 10 minutes, we need to divide 2,500 by the number of seconds in 10 minutes, which is 600 seconds. If you do this calculation, it gives us an answer of 4.1 transactions per second. This means Bitcoin can only guarantee 4.1 transactions per second when it's operating at its full capacity. This is very low compared to Visa's 1,700 transactions per second. So, these are my bad points about Bitcoin. Now we've gone over the good and the bad, we'll be discussing the ugly side of Bitcoin. This section will be a bit shorter than the rest, as there's only one point I have to go over. This is the effects that Bitcoin mining has on the environment. As explained at the start of the video, Bitcoin transactions are verified by mining blocks. To mine these blocks, it requires a lot of power. This is why it's called proof of work, because it requires the user to put energy in to get cryptocurrency back. However, the amount of energy required at the moment is a large amount, Cambridge researchers have done the calculations and said that Bitcoin mining consumes around 120 terawatt hours of energy per year. This is more energy than the whole of Argentina consumes per year. Technically, Bitcoin mining is a whole other country of energy on its own. As our main source of energy is still coal, this means we are pumping a year's worth of coal into the atmosphere just to mine Bitcoin. I'm not going to go into the effect this has on the environment, as many of you should already know what global warming is by now and what effects it has. So this is one of the major downsides of Bitcoin, and this is why many cryptocurrencies are switching to a proof of stake system. This is because proof of stake doesn't require any energy to verify transactions. The problem is that Bitcoin can't do this switch, as the code is already hardwired and the creator is either dead or doesn't want to touch the code at all to see his vision for Bitcoin would only be ruined if he edited the code. What's good about this is anyone can fork the code and tweak it as many coins have in the market. The biggest example of this is Litecoin. So overall, Bitcoin has many good features and many features that need to be polished for it to be working as an effective currency. I believe that we are just in the early stages of Bitcoin and it could potentially be our new world currency. I'd like to dedicate this video to the creator of Bitcoin, as they had a vision that started out small and has grown into something that not many people could have imagined. Nobody would have thought that the dollar could potentially have competition in the future. Bitcoin might be the biggest thing in the future, but today it's on a steady rise and hopefully it continues to rise. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Also, if you want to add to the Bitcoin discussion, feel free to comment below your thoughts.